welcome to Junkyard Cooking. Today we're going to make homemade soft tortilla shells. You're going to need flour. I'm using a white whole wheat flour today, so any kind of flour, I mean whatever you want. Baking powder, salt. I'm going to try shortening this time because I would like to see how that turns out. Some people use olive oil, some people use butter, some people use lard, but this is what we're going to do today. And then we're going to need warm water, and we'll go over the measurements. Tools that we're going to use today: you're going to need a bowl to mix in, your measuring cups, measuring spoons, a spatula, a knife to level off your flour with, and a spoon to scoop your flour with, and of course a rolling pin. To properly measure flour for baking, you take your cup and you lightly scoop in flour. You don't go just chunking it in there and packing it in. You want to lightly put it in. And then you need to level it off. You just want to take a knife, something that's flat, and level it off. And that is 1 level cup of flour. Next, you have your glass bowl or whatever bowl you're going to use. Some people use a mixer bowl with the paddle, but this is kind of fast, so I'm just going to do it this way. Then you have 1 of your level cups of flour. Now we need 3 total of these, so that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we have 3 cups of flour. Now we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And these have these fancy little thing in here, so you can have a nice level teaspoonful. So we need 2. Level it off. 1 and 2. And we need 1 heaping teaspoon of salt. All right, we have our 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. We'll just kind of mix that together here. And then we'll add our fats and water. So the recipe is calling for 5 tablespoons of shortening. And you kind of measure that the same way. You put it in there, you squish it, and you level it off. But you can convert it because there are 16 tablespoons in a cup, 8, da-da-da-da-da. So 4 tablespoons is actually a 1/4 cup. So instead of doing this 5 times, which you can do, if you're unsure, you can fill this 5 times. We're gonna fill this once, which will be 4 tablespoons, and this 1 tablespoon. These together will be 5 tablespoons for the recipe. So this is a 1/4 cup, which equals 4 tablespoons. So you get it in there. Try not to have any air pockets. When I first try a new recipe, I like to follow it to a T, take notes, and then I like to kind of add to it, change it, or whatever down the road depending. But sometimes with baking, it's just good to leave it alone. So we'll see how this one turns out. So you kind of got it like this, then level it off. So now you've got this one is equal to 4 tablespoons. But we need 5, so now we'll fill up this little guy. And the same thing. Fill that in, no air pockets. Level it off. Now we're going to add the shortening and the warm water. So we have 3/4 of a cup of warm water and our 5 tablespoons of shortening. So we'll just get that in there. Okay, and our warm water, 3/4 of a cup. Now we're going to work this all together. Nice, clean, washed hands. And we'll work it all together, and we'll kind of see if it needs a little splash of water, because it feels like it might. But let's see. Get that Crisco in there. Yeah, this definitely needs a tiny bit more water, I think. So I'm gonna grab that real quick. So let's see. So let's do a little bit over a tablespoon apparently. Dump that right in here. Just do another tablespoon. Feels much better. This is tacky, so this is good because we're also going to use a tiny bit of flour to roll it, so we don't want it too dry. Okay, so now let's turn this out onto a little lightly floured surface. So we're going to get the bowl out of the way. Put a little bit of flour. Nice clean counter. Everything's clean, disinfected, good to go. Put that on there. Maybe a little bit on your hands so they're not too sticky. And let's just knead this a little bit. See, it's much better and pliable. Just those 2 tablespoons of water added made this more workable. So you have to really be careful when you're adding. You can't just dump it in there. Just add a little bit at a time. And I almost feel like this could have used a little more. So, you know, once you do stuff, you just kind of get used to it. But like I said, when I do a recipe once, and then it's either perfect and I never touch it again, or I add to it little variances. I was curious about the Crisco, so we'll see. And that's probably pretty good. As a matter of fact, I actually feel like adding a little more to that, but let's just leave it alone and see what happens. So now we're going to separate it. Into whatever size you think you want to have. You know, like this would make a giant one. But let's just go try to do it as even, and you can weigh them out too if you want to be perfect about it. You can weigh them out. So these will be a little different sizes, but we'll get 8 out of that. See what we get. So just roll them, work them a little bit. You can kind of tell. And then we'll put them aside in the bowl. Sometimes you like to tuck them like that. That's fine. Once you put them on that surface, you're going to be rolling them out anyway. But it's good to work them a little. Okay. These guys in there, I'm going to put some damp paper towels. If you have a kitchen towel, like linen type of cloth that you like to use, that's fine too. Has to be clean. Has to be just used for that product then. So I'm just going to use the wet, damp paper towels because then I can just throw those out. And we're going to let this rest for about 10 minutes. The dough has sat 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a little longer. We're going to roll one out, take one out. It's still nice and damp, so that's good. And then I think this is enough flour. You don't want a lot. Flour, kind of work it out a little bit. I have the pan heating up on medium heat, and we'll go to that. Usually in the past I would just roll them all out, but we're going to do one and let those other ones stay covered so they don't dry out, and then kind of go back and forth. Just a little bit, just enough so it doesn't stick to the rolling pin. So we don't want a whole lot dry. Just roll it out. too thin, but not too thick. Although maybe the thick ones could be like little sandwich breads. So, all right, this looks good. Now we're gonna a little bit, not perfectly round, but and it's small. So we're gonna stop and we're gonna get over to the hot pan. Okay, I have a cast iron skillet on medium heat, heating up. I let it heat for a while. It feels pretty hot. It's dry. There's no oil in it at all. So we're gonna take our little tortilla, drop it in there. It should start to bubble a little bit. And just kind of lightly brown it on both sides. I'd say under a minute. Under a minute each side. See, there we got a little bit of brown on it. You can kind of tell when you're cooking them if you think that maybe, that's not too bad. Could have went on maybe a little bit thinner on that, although it depends how you like. I keep it on medium. This is an electric stove. Gas, you probably have to play with the flame a little bit until you get it right. Here's our finished tortillas. Now we can make all kinds of fun things. Wraps and quesadillas and whatever. Here's our finished tortillas. And I want to thank Marisol and Rosario for the tips on how to keep these more pliable. You put a towel over them while they're warm and let them sit so that they kind of steam themselves. I wasn't doing that before, so now we've got better tortillas now thanks to their advice. Carole Baskins.